Let's head out to the West Coast, talk some Oregon Ducks recruiting. Get my guy Justin Hopkins on here from Scoop Duck. Justin, the Ducks have a top 10 class right now. They're sitting at number 10, but it seems like there's a few high-profile recruitments that could go Oregon's way in the next few weeks. The guys I want to talk to you about, well, we're going to get to that in a minute, but first, you know I'm a big fan of your Prediction Tuesday, and I saw this week you put in a pick for edge target Colin Simmons, the 5-star out of Duncanville, Texas, to sign with the Longhorns. Now, before I want to know why you did that, but hey, are you conceding that he's not going to make it to campus in July?
Yeah, it certainly appears that that's going to be the case. I think Oregon did everything they could and put out a great visit, like everybody does, of course. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of a feeling that Texas has a really good hold there. And it certainly looks like that's one that Steve Sarkisian is not wanting to let get out of his home state there of Texas. So, yeah, I don't think he'll be back to Oregon in July. If he does end up making that trip, it might give my Texas pick a little bit of pause. But right now, I think Texas is the heavy favorite to land the 5-star edge.
Campus, you know what they say about predictions? They're meant to be changed. I don't know if they really say that about predictions. But anyway, the top targets that the Ducks are chasing right now are linebacker Justin Williams, offensive tackle Brandon Baker, edge Elijah Rushing, defensive lineman Aiden Breeland, and running back Nathaniel Frazier. Let's start at the top with Justin Williams, the number 1 linebacker in America, the number 13 prospect overall. Justin, it seems like this is a battle right now with East Coast and West Coast, the Dogs and the Ducks. What are your sources saying about Justin Williams?
Definitely that it's tight, like really, really tight. I think Oregon had such a substantial lead early on from the early offer, making them a priority, getting them on campus. But, I mean, it's Georgia, right? You know, they're national champions. Kirby Smart runs a heck of a defense, whether Dan Lanning's there or not. And they've made up ground. And I would probably be so bold to say I think Georgia might have the very slight edge at the moment. So we'll kind of see what he does in July. I don't get the sense that he's going to make his commitment in July. So I think some time away from that visit to Athens might help Oregon if they can get him back on campus in the fall. I think those are the two teams battling it out. But I personally, if I was making a pick today, I'd probably have to pick Georgia, I think.
Okay, well, let's move to another number 1 player at their position. This time, Brandon Baker, offensive tackle out of California. He is one that is trending towards the Ducks. You and I both have predictions in for Brandon Baker to Oregon, but who do you think right now is the biggest competition for the Ducks?
Well, we just talked about him, but I think it's Georgia. And it's great for Oregon to see that they are able to battle against Georgia because these are, battles that they really weren't able to win 2, 3, 4 years ago at all. So I do believe that it's Oregon and Georgia. I think Ohio State's lingering in there too. Those are probably the top 3. But right now I have my pick on Oregon. I'm still pretty confident on my pick in Oregon. And I think the Ducks are just, have always kind of had the lead and never let it go. So I still like the Ducks for Brandon Baker, which has been one of their top priorities in this cycle.
All right, good. So do I. As long as me and Justin Hopkins are on the same page, I can't go wrong. Let's move on to edge Elijah Rushing, the number 4 ranked edge in the country. He's been one that, I thought early on Oregon was the favorite for, but then he started taking visits. He went to Miami, most recently Tennessee. Justin, where do you think the Ducks stand for Elijah Rushing?
Another one I've got a pick on Oregon for, dating back to March. I still like Oregon, and for kind of this reason alone, I think there have been times where Arizona's been considered the team that's maybe battling with Oregon. I think you had to watch for Tennessee there in this last week or two, and you've had to watch for Notre Dame probably a month ago or even 6 weeks ago. But the one constant has always been Oregon. It's been Oregon versus one of those teams. So I still like the Ducks. This has the feel. I think Dan Lanning's done a really good job of making sure those elite West Coast offensive, defensive linemen stay out west. And I think that Elijah Rushing was one of the very first recruits he even reached out to when he got the job at Oregon. So I talked to Rushing last week, and he told me relationships were one of the big keys in his recruitment. I think Oregon's done a great job on that front.
Yeah, they absolutely have. Now, what do you pair with an edge? A big-time defensive lineman, and that's what they're trying to do with Aiden Breeland, the number 6 defensive lineman in America. Where do the Ducks stand with him?
Well, Once again, you see a trend here, but this one looks like Oregon and Georgia. I don't really think USC is all that much of a factor for Breeland right now. Conversely, I give Justin Williams the edge to Georgia, the edge with Justin Williams. I think I give Oregon the slight edge with Aiden Breeland. I think if he waits until Brandon Baker makes a commitment, I think that will only help Oregon, being as their teammates at Mater Dei. I also think the fact is, I believe that he's a young man that is more likely to stay closer to home than go cross country. Once again, that is in favor of Oregon. So I do like Oregon very slightly for Aiden Breeland right now, who, like rushing, they've made a complete top priority in this cycle.
All right, Justin, you're right. Let's just stick with the theme. Oregon versus Georgia. Running back Nathaniel Frazier. How do you see this battle playing out? Now, Alabama also involved here.
100% agree. Those are the three teams to watch. I think Alabama might be laying in the weeds a little bit, which kind of scares me because we know what Nick Saban can do on that front. I know Georgia is going to be losing some of their production at running back, so that's got to have a ton of appeal for Nate Frazier. I think Oregon will be in a similar position with that, with a couple backs moving on after this year, more than likely to the NFL. So that one's really tough. I think Nate Frazier, and I know we haven't talked about it, but Gatlin Bear is another one. Those two guys have been the toughest for me to get a really good read on in this cycle. I think they both keep a really tight lid on their recruitment. I think Frazier's done so. Again, if those two Mater Dei, teammates that we talked about, Aiden Breeland and Brandon Baker, commit to Oregon, you've got to think that helps Oregon with Frazier. But right now, I think I might have to give Georgia the slight edge there.
Some really talented players on this list, and you're right, Justin. It just seems like the top is about to blow off if a couple of these recruitments could go in Oregon's way. So Duck fans, don't you worry. The Quacks are coming. Before I let you go, though, Justin, what would you say is the biggest position of need moving forward?
Moving forward, I think it's offensive line for Oregon. This was always going to be a big class for them. You've got a couple commits right now. Fox Crater's a guy they got an early commit on and have had to battle to keep. Really good player, top 100 player. But you go and you throw a guy like Brandon Baker in the mix there. They're trending for Preston Taumua. There's several others that they're looking in great shape for. I think they're poised to close really strong there, but right now that's the biggest priority to make sure that they do close with, Baker obviously being the key to that class.
All right, Justin, always informative, always a good time. Thanks for stopping by the Inside Scoop.
Yes, sir.